Benvenuto! Welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to make chicken stock. Now I realize it's the beginning of the summer and you're probably thinking, Mark, what are you making chicken stock for? Well, I use chicken stock in a lot of different things besides soup. I had made a big batch in the fall and I used it all the way through the winter, so I haven't had any. When we were making the chicken marsala the other day, I thought, oh God, this would even have been better if I had my own chicken stock opposed to using store-bought stock, which there's nothing wrong with, but if you make it yourself, you know what's in it, you know how you like it, and it just kind of enhances the flavor, I think, if you make it from homemade, no matter what you're using it for. But to remember, we used chicken stock in our chicken masala. Also, you use chicken stock in many different things, whether you're making sauces or gravies. And a lot of times I replace the liquid with something that I'm making with chicken stock or beef stock or whatever the case may be. And in the future we will make some beef stock. Also I find, especially if you go to a nice restaurant and you have something and it's delicious and you think, oh, I've made this at home, it never comes out the same. Well, part of the reason is because of the stock that the chef is using. He or she is probably using a really good quality scratch-made chicken stock or beef stock, and it really does make the difference in almost everything you cook, whether it's from risotto to rice to just enhancing the flavor of whatever you're cooking. I've even seen a recipe someplace where when somebody's making potato salad, they use chicken stock to boil their potatoes, which I'm definitely going to try that this summer because it sounds like it would really help enhance the flavor. And potato salad is one of those things I've never quite been able to get the hang of it. Anyway, so we're going to make a big batch of stock today so that we have plenty to put in the freezer. I'm not using it for anything particular this week, so I'm going to freeze it all. But I've got a gallon of water here. We're going to end up using about 2 gallons of water. We need our chicken, of course. All right, the great debate. What's the difference between chicken stock and chicken broth? I really don't know. One you cook with the bones roasted, one you cook with just the meat. Depends upon the color. I do it with both, so I don't know what to call it, but I just like it. So anyway, we're going to need about 4 pounds of chicken. I've got chicken thighs, chicken wings, and a couple of chicken drumsticks. We're going to need some aromatic vegetables. So we've got, I would say the recipe would call for about 2 medium onions. I didn't have 2 medium onions, so I got 1 large onion and 1 small onion. So I'd say about 2 medium onions, 2 good, nice size carrots. Now I have peeled and trimmed these. There are a lot of people say you don't. Some people, different recipes you see out there, you don't even need to peel the onions. It says that the peel adds some flavor, color to the stock. I've been making my own stock for a long time. I've done it this way, and I always peel them, so that's what I do. So I peeled and trimmed the carrots, probably about 2 large, and we've got some nice fresh celery. Probably, again, in total, those were kind of small and thin, but you'd probably use 2 good-sized stalks. All right, now I'm going to chop the vegetables only right now. And we need a teaspoon of whole peppercorns and 2 dried bay leaves. And that's really all that's going to go into your stock. We'll talk about it a little bit more as we cook. Anyway, we're just going to literally rough chop these onions. And see, sometimes you don't know that onion is a little rotten. So it's a good thing I have another onion. I'm going to throw that away. It's hard to tell sometimes. That looks good. So again, I'm just really just chopping that up. Let's get that peel away from there so I don't get it in my gravy or my stock. All right, so again, we're just rough chopping that. This stock is going to cook for a significant amount of time. I think that's also one of the differences between stock and broth. I think typically, you know, a broth or a stock is one or the other. You cook for many, many hours, you know, especially if you're making a beef bone broth. You probably want to cook that for a good 12 hours or so. I've kind of brought this down to at about, total cooking time is going to be about 4 hours. All right. We're going to take one additional step before we add our vegetables, but I'm just going to cut them up and put them aside. You know, again, there are so many different chicken stock recipes out there. This is one that I have used for a long, long time, and it's what I find works the best for my cooking. And you keep the celery leaves in there. They're absolutely delicious. They add a little bit nice mild flavor to it. All right, I'm even going to throw my peppercorns and my bay leaves right in there because we're going to put those all in together so I don't forget, just in case I put it aside. All right, so we got our vegetables done, but we're going to put those aside. We're not going to put those in the stock right now. I'll throw a piece of saran wrap on that and throw them aside. But I just wanted to show you how I just rough chop the veggies. Okay, so first we're going to start out with our chicken. Now, I didn't wash this, but I did pat it dry. You know, again, some people insist that you have to wash the chicken. You know, I've seen watched other professional chefs on TV, and they say, you know, don't wash the chicken, for one thing, because you're going to cook it, and if there is any contamination on it, that's going to cook it away. If you wash it, then you're contaminating your sink and everything else around it. So I do put on a pair of gloves and pat it dry as much as possible. All right, so we got it. We got our big stock pot. Okay, one of the things I wanted to tell you about a stock pot is, why do we use a stock pot when you make stock? Or even if I make my tomato sauce or gravy. This happens to be a brand new pot. This is the first time I've used it. I forgot what. Usually the funny things of the years, like where you'll get like a little award or $50 or $75 gift certificate for, you know, something he's won at work or something, or if he's done an idea or something, and I always get to take that and buy myself something. So I bought myself a new stock pot. But I bought this months ago, but it's the first time I'm using it. So we're using this pot for the first time together. So we're going to take our chicken and dump it all in your pot. Oh, I started to say, the reason you use a big, tall stock pot opposed to something that's shorter and wider is that you lose. There's less surface room, so there's not as much evaporation, because this stock we're not going to cover at all. This is going to do about its 4 hours of cooking uncovered, so you are going to lose a little bit of volume. Oh, there's the Oriole. He's out there. Can you see him? See if you can get him on camera. Last year we tried to attract Orioles to our backyard, and this year, with the right feeder and everything, we got them. There's at least a couple that come visit us several times a day. And that Baltimore Orioles are Wade's favorite birds. Mine are the Cardinals, but those are a lot easier to attract in our area. Anyway, so we've got our big stock pot, and we're going to just, at this point, we're going to cover our chicken with it. So we might not use all of this water. We're going to get this in the pot. And I'm just going to grab a spoon and kind of move that around a bit. Go, so not just in one clump there. All right, so that's just about covered. I'm going to a little bit more. This is a big pot, so hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, you know, I might as well put in the whole first gallon. All right, so now at this point, we're going to put turn our heat source on, and we can put it up to high, but I want you to watch it because we want to bring it to a boil, or very slightly before it comes to a boil, and then we want to put it down in a simmer. You'll see as we go through the process, as you're simmering it, you're going to have some white foam kind of come float up to the top. I'm sure of anybody that's watched any other video about doing anything with chicken or making chicken stock or broth, that happens. I don't know, some people call it scum, this or that. It's proteins. It's the proteins from the chicken, the meat being released, and the fat together, and it just rises up the top. It's perfectly edible. I don't really think it has a taste. But the one thing it does do is if you don't skim it off, it makes your broth cloudy, because once you stir it in together, once you get your broth going and you've mixed it into whatever else, you're going to stir it together, and of course those protein particles are solid, so they're going to cloud your sauce up a bit. So one of the most important things with chicken stock is, or even beef stock really, you never want to bring it to a rolling boil, because if you do, that's going to break it up and put it in your sauce. So initially we want to get this, so I've turned it up to high because we wanted to get up to temperature as quick as possible. But I am going to keep my eye on it. I'm not going to go very far. And as soon as it comes up to that simmer, that just where it's bubbling a little bit, I'm going to turn it down, and we're going to let it simmer for an hour. But when that happens, we'll be back to show it to you. So see you in a little bit. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's just about coming to the boil. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, and then I'm going to turn it down to probably medium. But I also wanted you to see, you can see there's a little bit of foam starting to form on the top of it. Let's just watch it in silence for a moment. You can see we just got a little tiny little bubbles coming up to the surface. You just don't want to bring it to a big rolling boil. I'll give it another 30 seconds on high. Once this reaches our simmer, we're going to put this, this is going to simmer for an hour before we put our vegetables in. Also, we can talk about this a little bit more, but you'll notice there's no salt in this. Typically when you're making this type of stock or broth, you don't add any salt to it. For a couple different reasons. One, especially if you're going to use it in a gravy or a sauce, you're going to be reducing it at some point during the process. And of course, if you reduce it, you're going to intensify the salt. Plus also, if you're using it as a replacement for whatever liquid you'd be using in the recipe, you've got salt and other seasons in the recipe, so you don't want to oversalt it, excuse me, or it to become overpowered with the other flavors. All right, I think we're just at about where that's just how I want it. It's just, you can see there's a little bit of foam forming there, like I said, and it's just bubbling little bubbles here and there. All right, so I'm going to turn this down now to on this gadget, what is medium, and I'm going to keep my eye on it over the next hour. We'll come back and show you when there's more of the foam develops on the top, and we'll skim it off. All right, see you in a little while. Okay, we've been simmering for just about a half an hour, and as you guys can see, some of the fat is starting to come to the top, the foam. So what we want to do at this point is we just kind of want to skim this. We want to remove this foam. And just be as gentle as possible, so the least you break up and get in your gravy, the clearer. Oop, that wasn't a good one. The clearer your gravy, I'm sorry, your stock, the clearer your stock's going to be. You'll also see that we've got, fat coming up as well. That I'm not really worried about right now, just because we are going to refrigerate this and allow the fat to congeal on the top, and then we'll take it off. Now you're probably going to do this several times through your whole cooking process, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like and what we do. Then you can just kind of set that aside. All right, this is going to continue to simmer for another 30 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. We'll kind of skim off any of the white foam again, and we'll put our veggies in and continue the process. See you in a half hour. Okay, our chicken has been simmering in the water for an hour now. I've done one other skimming of this before we put our vegetables in and our next water. The rest of the water we might as well do a quick skim off the top. You can see the broth is underneath here is pretty clear. It's already started to turn a little bit yellow, so we're getting a little bit of color. But this is a light broth or a blonde broth. I guess there's lots of different ways you call it, but it's not going to have a deep brown color. Again, I'm just trying to take out just off the white foamy stuff and not take too much of our liquid out. All right, so at this point, we're going to add all of our vegetables. So we've got our carrots, onions, celery, our bay leaves, and our peppercorns in here. Try to add it in a little gently so you don't screw up all the work you've done trying to get it to be clear. Then we're going to take our other gallon of water and add that in. I'm not going to stir this or anything again right now. I don't want to get all of those proteins mixed up in the rest of our broth. So again, that's going to make up about our 2 gallons of water. As you can see, there's some steam coming out of the pot. So what does that mean? That means that the water that we're have put in there is reducing a bit. So we're probably going to, over the course of the 3 hours, probably reduce it by, at least a quarter or so. All right, so we're going to bring this back up to that same simmer. So I'm going to turn this up a bit. I'm going to sit right here and watch it. So we got our veggies in there, our chicken in there. We've skimmed it a couple times. You're going to end up skimming it a couple times over the next 3 hours. But as soon as this comes back up to that point where I want it to be, we'll come back and I'll show what it is. And then the next thing is just waiting for it to simmer for another 3 hours. See you in a little bit. All right, it's just started to come back up to the simmer. It's exactly where I want it, so I'm going to turn it down. And basically, you don't have to do anything to it. Don't stir it. Keep your eye on it. You want to make sure that it's right at simmer. Occasionally, you might want to go and do a little defoaming. All right, and other than that, for the next 3 hours, it's just going to sit there and get more delicious and smell better and better. See you in 3 hours. Okay, I'm back. Our stock has simmered for a total of 4 hours. So the first hour was just with the chicken parts, and the second, third, and fourth was with the vegetables and our peppercorns and our bay leaf. Okay, so now, by the way, you can also, if you do this exact same thing, you can make turkey stock, except of course use turkey parts instead of chicken. Now, when I make this, a lot of times, if I can get them, I do it with chicken backs and chicken wings. There's a lot of meat left over on the thighs and the drumsticks. Now, you'll see also, if you notice, I don't know if you can see on there, but our stock is reduced by, probably about a fourth. Okay, so we've probably lost about 6-7 cups or so, and probably less, maybe 4 or 5.
You see the original line?
Yeah, you can see the original line where it started from. But anyway, that's reduced, concentrating all of our nice flavor. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take the pieces of chicken and vegetables out. Now, Wade will probably want to pick at these all because he hates to waste stuff. But there is a lot of good meat on there. But however, we have taken all the flavor out of the meat. If I was going to make soup with this, what I would do is I'd probably take the meat out, let it cool a bit, pick all the meat off, put it aside, add some fresh carrots, onions, and celery, maybe a teaspoon each of dried thyme and rosemary, readjust the salt and pepper, and then I'd put it back on the stove, bring it up to a boil, let the onions and most of the carrots more than anything else get tender. Then I'd throw a couple handfuls of penne in there and let that get tender, and then throw your chicken in there, let that come up, warm up, and you've got the best chicken soup you've ever had in your life. Now, for my purpose for today, what I'm really making this for is, so that I have chicken stock on hand when I'm making a recipe that calls for chicken stock. But again, there's a lot of nice meat on those legs. You certainly could pick that off if you want and make chicken salad would be good too. You can make a nice chicken salad with that. So right now I'm just taking out, like I said, most of the big parts. I want to cool this down as fast as possible because I want to get this in the refrigerator for overnight. So we're going to use a method that actually a professional chef showed me what they do in the restaurant. All right, so we got most of our stuff out of there. Okay, just make it a little bit easier to handle. Now, so what we're going to do is I've got my sink filled up with ice. This is a great time to clean out your ice dispenser, get some fresh ice going in there. And we got a strainer right over here. So, hon, if you want to come over this side, if you can. Put my strainer there. Dropped my napkin. And I'm just going to go grab a ladle. I don't think I'm going to be able to pour it in there. Oh, I should be able to. All right, so I've got my sink filled up with ice. I've got another pot in there. All right, so and we're just gonna, it's too precious to not do it right, so I'm gonna ladle it in first. And we're gonna ladle it in our strainer. Now I have a fine strainer there, so I don't need to add any additional cheesecloth to it, but if you don't have a fine wire sieve, throw a piece of cheesecloth in there if you have it. You don't really need it. Most likely any sieve you've got is going to take out any of the big parts, but with the exception of if you just have a colander. If you just have a colander, then I definitely would line it with some. Don't mind my other dirty dishes in there. I ran to the supermarket and I thought Wade would have that all cleaned up for me, but he didn't. So what am I doing this for? So like I said, I want to cool this down so I can get this in the refrigerator. Now that I put the ice on the other side, I'd probably be able to just pour the thing in there. And I suppose I can give it a try now. You're not going to be able to see that, but guys, what we're doing is we're just pouring it through the sieve into my other pan, of course, that I've got in there. Get that all out of there, yummy. Okay. Then we can discard the rest of this. All right, and then going to fill the sink up with water. Of course, I got my stopper in there. And I'm going to fill the sink up with water till about where the stock line is. Of course, be careful that you don't turn on your faucet. Forget that it's in front of your pot, and you waste all that work that you did getting a delicious stock by diluting it with water. Now, also imagine this, guys. If you take the time to make this, and granted, it's time consuming. It's easy, but yeah, it is going to take you, half the day to get it all together. But it is definitely worth it. So imagine if you do a big pot of this next weekend. If you've got the time, you put it in your freezer. And then on that first chilly day, and I know we don't want to think about the winter coming, but it is going to be here in about October, in about 5 months or so. All right, so I think that's good. So like I said, we've got that filled to about the line. So as I was saying, so you've got this in the freezer, all ready to go. Those first chilly days of the fall, you stop at the supermarket, pick up a rotisserie chicken, some fresh, some carrots, onions, and celery. Chop those up, take the skin off your rotisserie chicken, dice the meat up, throw those both in the refrigerator. Of course, you've got to remember to take out your stock the night before. And if you've got everything ready, get your crock pot out in the morning, throw your stock, your vegetables, some rosemary, some thyme, a little bit of salt and pepper, put it in your crock pot, turn it on low. When you come back 8 hours from after your day is done, your family is going to walk into this wonderful smelling chicken soup. So then when you get home, throw a couple handfuls of penne pasta or your favorite pasta in there. Put the lid back on your crock pot for 30 minutes. Throw in your chicken. You just got to warm that up. And again, you have delicious chicken soup. Or if you do it like this, you have what I'm going to use it for. You're going to have stock for when you need it in a recipe. All right, so what we're going to do with that is just going to let that sit there for a little while. Give it a stir occasionally so that everything gets, nice and cooled down. And then we're going to get this into the refrigerator for overnight because I want any fat that's left there. And I don't know if you can see. It's hard to see because we do have a little bit of fat on top, but look at what a nice clear sauce that has come out. Again, during that 3 hours that it was simmering, I occasionally, probably about 3-4 times, skimmed off the top. So anyway, like I said, I want to get this in the refrigerator. This whole pot's going to go in my refrigerator so that it can get really cool overnight. The fat will rise to the top, then I'll scrape it off, and then we will put it in storage containers. And we can't do that until tomorrow. So for now, our stock is cooling. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Okay, our broth has been in the refrigerator overnight, and I just wanted to show you guys how I finish it up. So you can see the fat that was left in the broth has risen to the top, and I'm just going to skim the fat off. Now, sometimes if I was going to use this right away, I may not have, or I was going to refrigerate it for a couple of days, I may not have skimmed off the fat, because actually if you're going to use it within the couple of days that it's going to be in the refrigerator, the fat on it helps it make a nice seal. But however, this is going to go in the freezer, and I find it doesn't do as good for freezing. So anyway, I'm just going to go in and gently, just like we did with the skimming, try to remove as much of the fat. You don't have to get every single bit of it. We actually got quite a bit of it during the cooking process and the skimming of it. The other thing is, you'll notice it's still, it's still a liquidy broth. Sometimes you see, stock will get very gelatinous and almost just like, gelatin. That's from the longer cooking process, at least from the way I understand it, of the collagen in the bones coming out and so on, and skin and meat. But for this purpose, I don't want that, because I'm going to use this primarily to finish sauces and gravies, which I'm going to thicken up anyway. Also, in a recipe that for the most part I would use water in, I'll use this broth instead to give it that extra layer of flavor. A few more, like I said, you don't have to get every single bit of it, but you figure with all that we took off while we were skimming it, and now this has a pretty high non-fat percentage rate, and we have no salt in here, so of course it's low sodium, or no added salt, only the natural salt that's in the chicken. I think that will do. So then next thing I do is I love these deli containers. A couple of you guys have commented on how often I use them, but I absolutely love these. I probably buy a couple dozen every year, if not more. So at this point, we have a nice clear sauce, a little bit of color to it, and I'm going to fill these up. And of course, whenever you're going to freeze liquid like that, guys, you all know, don't fill it right to the brim because it's going to expand a bit when you freeze it. So I always like to fill it up on these containers. That's why one of the reasons I like these is you've got that little bit, I don't know, decorative edge there. So I usually fill it right up to there, and then that gives us enough to expand if it does. So then, good. Put on its cover, good airtight cover. I'll put a little piece of masking tape on there, and I'll put the month and the year I made it, and I will stick that in the freezer. And next time I need some beautiful chicken broth, I will have my own homemade ready. All right, that's it for chicken broth. We'll work on doing a beef broth, beef bone broth one, or maybe even a bone broth chicken if you guys would like to see that. Thank you so much. We don't have a tasting because I don't want to taste cold broth from the refrigerator, but next time we make something with it, I'll make sure to mention that this is the broth we all made together. Thank you. Don't forget, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you liked our video. And what else do they need to do, Wade?
Show your home cooking.
And please go to cherryhillhomecooking.com for the written recipe. Thank you so much. Ciao.